my heart. I'm so grateful for that. So thank you, and yeah, I appreciate you guys.
Brother, I love that. And I think it's clear by now, patriot is not a dirty word. I think in Australia, I mean, I think you actually mentioned this on our chat the other week that even in the US, it sort of became a bit of a dirty word. In Australia, it definitely did. It was almost like people, it was shameful to love our country. You know, how dare
Yep.
we? It's bizarre. But I think we need to stand in that truth right now, in that strength, and how you described it. If you could just reel that up one more time for me, because I thought that was just so
Sure.
powerful. What
Sure.
is a patriot?
So I believe a patriot is somebody who loves their country, loves the people there, wants to see that country be free and thrive, and is willing to defend it. That's what I believe is the true definition of patriot. And can I speak on what you just said really quick, though? Is
Yeah,
that okay?
great.
So one of the reasons why patriotism is being hijacked, one of the ways that people are twisting that word and that label is they're associating it with nationalism. And that's why I was saying in the beginning, America first doesn't mean America only, right? It's the same thing as anything else. Australia first wouldn't mean Australia only. Patriotism and nationalism, the way those are separated is patriotism is inclusive, nationalism is exclusive. Nationalism is when the pendulum swings too far. That's when it's gone overboard. That's when you only care about your people and you don't care about anyone else, and it's actually to the detriment of other nations. And we've seen what happens when that comes into play in the past, right? But patriotism is not nationalism, and people need to be reminded of that.
Yes.
And that is such an important thing right now, because that's one of the biggest ways that this word and this term and this honorable label has been hijacked.
I couldn't agree more, my man. And I think we are finding that more and more people are wanting to reconnect with that. And I think when you describe that definition, everybody watching, comment and let me know. But I resonate hard with that, especially right now. I now more than ever would identify as a true patriot, and I think
You
we all
absolutely
should
would.
step into that because if we do not defend what is ours and we do not want to build something special and continue to evolve our great countries, what are we doing? Where do we want to live? It just doesn't even make sense,
That's
does
right.
it?
That's right. That's
What?
right. And I think people need to understand too that this is a global freedom rally, right? Well, let's talk about freedom for a minute, because I think a lot of people tend to think, hey, you know what? My freedom is my freedom and you should respect it. But when you want to use your freedom to do things that
Mm.
you believe in, even though I don't agree with it, I'm not okay with that. And that's the thing, guys. Freedom is not, you can't pick and choose your freedom. Even if somebody's doing something you don't agree with, they have the freedom to do that. That's what
Yes.
freedom is. And you can't say you can't do this, but you need to respect me when I want to do this. I used the example of in America when people kneel for the anthem, right? I hate it. I absolutely hate it. It's very, very disrespectful in my opinion, and I loathe when I see people doing that. However, I have to be okay with them doing that because they're not harming anyone. And that's why America is the way it is. Is they're not going to
Mm.
get thrown off of a building for doing that, right? But I have to be okay with them doing it because that's freedom. Just like they
Mm.
have to respect my freedom, I have to respect theirs. Otherwise, who am I going around talking about how respect my freedom if I don't want to wear a diaper on my face or if I don't want to freaking get something put in my body that I don't agree with? Who am I to say you have to respect my freedom, but I'm not going to respect yours? It's ass backwards, man. And people have to realize that. They have to realize that there's hypocrisy in that. And
So true.
and that, it's just such an important thing.
Very true. And I think that goes to the point that you made previously just in your speech there, that we need to be slow to argue and quicker to ask questions and have an open dialogue. And in those situations where you see something you may not agree with it, and you know it's their God-given right to do what they want to do, they're a free person. It's an opportunity to have a discussion, to
Yeah,
find out why, find out more. Everyone has their individual experience and perspective, whether you believe it's right or wrong in the moment. But
that's
isn't that
right.
a good opportunity to potentially create another patriot or just have a better conversation understanding?
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. I believe that the word patriot can replace all labels. That's what I believe. I believe that we focus too much on they're black, they're white, they're, they're liberal, they're conservative, they're Democrat, they're Republican, they're this, they're that. Well, what if we just focused on the fact that if those people, if that's a big if, right? Because there are people that don't love their country, don't love the people in it, don't want to see it be free and thrive, and I mean, that's why we're having this whole rally. But we're not talking about those people because I consider those people evil. The people that are good, that actually do want all of those things, well, it doesn't matter what color they are, and it doesn't matter what religion they are, and it doesn't matter what political party they are, because if they're a patriot, that should be the only label that matters to us, especially right now. Especially right now, is that person a patriot? Well, then you know what? I may not agree with everything they say, but damn, they're on my side fighting. I mean, even right now, there are people who are fighting for your rights and your freedoms in the military, in the service, who I promise you don't agree with everything you agree with, who probably have very differing beliefs in a lot of ways, but they're putting their lives on the line for you so that you can enjoy the freedoms that are under attack right now. We need to realize that, and we need to remember it. Patriotism can replace labels.
I love that, my man. I want to say a big thank you for joining us at the Global Freedom Rally. I love your energy. I love your mission, my man. You've been doing such an amazing job, and keep up the good work, because we need more of that right here, right now.
Will do. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, brother. Ian, what an absolute patriot, but what an absolute warrior. And I love those points. I love his definition of what a patriot is. And I really love that point. I actually wrote it down because I loved it so much. Be slower to argue, but quicker to ask questions, because it's within those questions that you can resolve all argument. It's that simple. So many times during the last 2 years, I have never gone in and attacked a person based on their thoughts on what's happening and based on what their beliefs are. Instead, I ask questions. And during that process, it helped them realize often that they didn't have all the answers, or they didn't have any answers. Sometimes they did. And it was really good to have that conversation, open dialogue. But don't you think it's more important that we get better at having debate, civilized debate, better conversations, better questions, putting it all on the table? Because what we're all after at the end of the day, either side, is truth and freedom. And this is what we're after. And this is what the Global Rally is all about. And someone who stands in his truth and always fights for freedom is our next guest. He's all the way from the US of A. He's a veteran. He's an US Army drill sergeant. And he is a man that loves to kick ass. His name is John Burke. Welcome to the Global Freedom Rally.
Gee, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me here. You got me loud and clear. Am I good?
I got you, brother. I got you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
Mate, absolute honor to have you on board. Again, thank you, my man. I know you're really busy, so it's great to share your message to people all over the world. We've got people right now watching from Australia, UK, New Zealand, and the US of A. And again, they're all really excited to hear you, my man. So I'm going to give you the stage. I'm going to let you talk to the world, and then I'm going to come back in and ask you some questions.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. I thought we were just going to doesn't matter. You're good. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I'm not even gonna lie. I didn't prepare a speech. I normally just go off the cuff. I go off of what's in my mind. And right now, I listened to the previous speaker, and we talked about the definition of patriotism, labels, and things such as this. We have to be pragmatic about what we're dealing with right now on the national and international stages. Number one, let's take, for example, the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. We talk about debate. We talk about civil discourse. We talk about things like that. The number one enemy of every single American that exists in this country today, much less every single person that exists in this world today, the number one enemy of every single person that is listening to me talk right now is the MSM. The mainstream media, their goal is to divide. When we look back at the creation of social media is driving traffic to these websites that generate ad revenue. The clickbait headlines come into play. All of these things generate more people to cause more controversy. It's the human condition that people aren't seeming to understand. I have a following of over 1 million people. I can post something good. it gets jack shit engagement. Nobody cares about good. Instead, our society is comprised of people that want to sit on their asses and watch the Kardashians because it gives us an escape from the shitty reality that we've created from ourselves, because the majority of people are too fucking lazy to do anything worth a shit in their lives. So what we do is we focus in on these headlines, and the press knows this, and it gives us something to feast on. It gives us something to just latch onto and gnaw into, because it makes us feel good about ourselves. Hey, look how shitty that person's doing. Well, man, that makes me feel good inside, because secretly that's not me. And the reason I bring this up is the press causes so much division because these headlines generate money. Now, we talk about constructive conversations with the opposite side of the spectrum. Well, let's look at Kyle Rittenhouse here. The press came out and they slandered this kid as a white supremacist. Our own piece of shit president slandered him as a white supremacist before he even took office. We watched the trial unfold. We realized a lot of the facts, and I use that term very loosely according to CNN and places like that, and Fox is no different, don't get me wrong, two sides of the same coin. We see these people legitimately lying and spinning headlines and essentially taking a 17-year-old kid and trying to destroy his life because they don't give a shit about this kid. That's the way it is. So how can you have rational discussion with people that really don't give a fuck about you? Because on here, we're non-existent. Let's be honest with this. When we're tweeting back at somebody, hey, go start a shotgun, I generally don't give a fuck about that person. Let's just be real. I am not going to be cordial with people that condone pedophilia. I'm not going to be cordial and condone people that beat women, men that beat women. I'm not going to be cordial and condone those that on their own, they know good well that they are misrepresenting the truth to push a political bias narrative. When the Rittenhouse verdict came out, Mayor Bloomberg of New York, this piece of shit comes out there, and you read the tweet, and he talks about how Kyle crossed state lines, which is irrelevant, doesn't even matter. A lie. The trial showed this was a lie. He, knowing this, pushes it anyway. An elected leader, an official, a leader of people is lying to push a political bias. Andrew Cuomo, who's in the middle of sexual assault charges from sexual assaulting interns, wants to chime in. You have the left hailing up a pedophile, a woman beater, and a convicted felon who, by the way, had a firearm there illegally as their heroes and their martyrs. So I'm sorry, but I think the time for tolerance is over. And this starts with the press. And during any revolution that has occurred in the history of mankind, the press and the propagandists are the first ones to go. And justifiably so. Justifiably so. If they can keep us divided, they make money. People don't seem to understand. Politicians these days, on both sides, they create the problem and then post themselves as the solution to said problem. The problem that we face is we have too many politicians. We have too much government. We have too much oversight. Now, the previous speaker, I have to disagree with him. When we call patriotism, I'm in a point in my life right now where a lot of the things that I thought were true growing up here in America, I've come to find out are not. They're actually not true. I was lied to. I was raised on, I call it great value propaganda bullshit. Great value brand patriotism. America, freedom is free, blah, blah, blah. I mean, let's dissect that real quick. And I ask you to just, before you pass judgment on what I'm saying, just listen to what I'm telling you. At 17 years old, 9/11 happened. The towers fell. We were told there were weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East. We were told all manner of things. 17-year-old John enlisted. I said, I wanted to go and I want to go fight for my country. Because who doesn't? It's the rite of passage into manhood from becoming a boy into a man. And you sit there. And you start asking yourself, when you start burying brothers, it's like, what are we fighting for? Where are these weapons of mass destruction? And then before you know it, we've got the Patriot Act, which is a clear, direct violation of your First Amendment right. They're spying on you. And I was told, well, hey, if you're not a terrorist, you don't have anything to worry about. Oh, yeah, I get that. That makes sense. But then you start to dissect that. It's like, well, wait a minute. Austin Peterson, presidential libertarian candidate from 2016, I believe, told me, he talked about how any federal government entity that when it is created, if you don't feel comfortable with the opposing political side having access to that, then it should not exist. We've seen that with our FBI. And this is coming from a guy who is a big support the blue line. I do support police, but there's a limit to that support. There's a limit to what I endorse as far as government bodies, government entities that I think Again, these politicians have created these problems and saying the answer is more government oversight and regulation. And what we have now, ladies and gentlemen, is a direct violation of the premise of freedom to choose. What has been so sad for me to see is that the 13 years that I served, I turn around and I look at my country now and I'm fucking shamed. You know what patriotism actually is? It's almost like rebellion. That's how America was given life. We rebelled. Patriotism is standing for what you truly believe to be right, but it's supported by the concept of freedom. And I'll take it a step further. To my Australian brothers and sisters out there, look, man, I feel bad for you. The video footage I see going down in your country right now of how those cops are treating you, I'll put it this way. That's why you need a Second Amendment. That's why you need firearms. I won't lie to you, ladies. You want the truth? Here's the truth. If I saw a cop walking up to my woman and choke slamming her into the fucking ground because she's not wearing a face mask, that dude would have a bullet in his head. You don't seem to understand. You are the majority. There are so many more of you than there are of them. Don't forget that. And my question is to a lot of people out there in the influencer world on social media. Many of you motherfuckers are quiet. You're not saying a goddamn word because you're afraid. Oh, I might lose business. I might lose money. What's the line in the sand for you? You've got people out there on the front lines day in and day out that have no fucking business. The government came in and they said, hey, for your safety, for your protection, we're going to close these businesses down. Have any of you thought about this at all? When they closed every mom and pop joint in America, hundreds of thousands of businesses went bankrupt. But what businesses stayed open? Walmart, Target, Lowe's, Home Depot, major corporations. Logistically, wouldn't it make more sense to disperse the people into various different stores to get what they needed to get to survive versus funneling them into single stores, thus increasing the likelihood of catching COVID? The governments of the world are corrupt. There is no denying this. These police officers, and I'm not generalizing all of them, I'm talking about those that wear a badge that think that badge is going to save you from the justice you've got coming. You should be skeptical of the police. You should not trust the police. And that's not me saying they're bad human beings, but you have to understand and realize with power and authority comes skepticism. It's needed to keep the balance. Without it, you have potential tyranny. What you've got going on in Australia right now, what you have going on in America in some places. Complete and total fucking lockdowns. And let's take it a step further. You have Gavin Newsom that locks down California left and right. People can't, like, the businesses are under. People that have scraped, that worked their fingers to the bones, their businesses are done and they're not coming back. But this piece of shit, his vineyard stays open. He's out dining in restaurants maskless. You've got the president, one of the most powerful people in the free world, a disgrace by any stretch of the imagination. And he's out there without a mask. He's coughing into his hand and shaking hands with reporters. He's caught in a restaurant without a mask. You would think if this pandemic was as bad as they make it out to be, the most powerful man in the world, or at least one of them, would be under lock and key, because guess what? He's in the percentile that's most likely to die from it. But why isn't he? We have been lied to. The gain of function research that was sponsored by the grants given by America to China. Why the fuck are we outsourcing shit to China? I don't understand that. Now, let's not get it twisted. There is biological warfare research going on in every single country in this world. It'd be foolish not to acknowledge that. There certainly is. But ladies and gentlemen, you've got to understand something. Freedom comes with a cost. And this is what my fellow Americans don't seem to understand. In the likelihood of your own personal safety being jeopardized, Benjamin Franklin, how many of you love quoting this guy, those that would sacrifice safety or security for safety deserve neither. That's exactly what you're doing. Our generation has grown ripe off of the fruit of freedom. You've grown fat off of it. You don't understand what sacrifice means. You don't know what it means to want for something. Now we live in the age of Amazon Prime. We have all these things at our fingertips within 24 hours. This is where we're at in our lives, ladies and gentlemen. So these influencers, these companies that have the power to rally people, to wake them up, to get them involved, to get them out there protesting, why are they quiet? What are you afraid of? If there was a line in the sand to be drawn, I ask you, where the fuck is that line at? Because I'll tell you this much. That business to your left might be closed down. That business to your right might be closed down. But soon enough, it will be your business. And then you caring is going to be too late. The people in Australia, look, I'm telling you, if those mandates don't get lifted and you've done everything you can by the book, then maybe violence is the answer. And nobody's saying it because they're afraid. I've been on the front lines in Afghanistan and Iraq. I've seen what those people did to us. We went against fucking men and boys and flip-flops, and they kicked the shit out of us because our hands were tied. Don't think for a second that you can't do the same thing if needed. When's the line in the sand for you? That's my question to you. More lockdowns happen. More businesses getting destroyed. When's enough? You go through the courts fail. Hey, religious exemption, you're not getting it. No. So what's the line in the sand? I ask you that to every single Australian out there, and I feel bad for you. I do. I mean that. The shit that government is putting you through, Jesus Christ. The French would have been beheading them by now. But we have grown accustomed to slow increases in tyrannical behavior by our elected officials. And this is where we live in America, and that's why I'm so fucking ashamed of social media. Our politicians are the same as the Kardashians. They're celebrity figures. You've got AOC wearing a tax the rich. Bitch, you are the fucking rich. What the fuck are you talking about? You've got government coming in there and saying, hey, for your safety, we're going to implement this. I want to hit you with this. To anyone listening, I highly suggest you look up a man by the name of Milton Friedman. He was a libertarian, a devout libertarian, and he talked about the freedom to choose, the freedom of choice. And he did a speech. You can look it up on YouTube. It's a very interesting speech. And this is what opened my mind to certain things. He talked about the abolishment of the FDA. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, wait, what? He's like, but we need the FDA because I've been conditioned to think that way. You have been conditioned to think a certain way your entire life. And the government does not want that. The sheep want you with your head down, eating the grass that they grow for you. But when you start to wake up and understand, well, wait a minute. What do you mean abolish the FDA? Let me explain it to you. With the FDA, there have been many drugs that have come through our systems that have been good. But there have been many drugs that have come through our system that are bad, that have killed people. Well, what happens? Well, that's a good question. Nobody's looking into that really. But the point is, with COVID, right now, the FDA is rushing a vaccine that normal clinical trials go from 5 to 8 years. So you have the longevity to study the long-term effects, right? We can agree on that. Well, then why is this one being rushed? Now, look, I'm not against vaccines. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. And that's where the lines get crossed. I believe in the freedom to choose. But the point being is, even before the FDA blessed off on a lot of these things, there were a lot of Americans raising their hands saying, I'll take it. Let them be the guinea pigs. And that's what's been happening. But now, are you seeing the negative side effects of this? No, because big tech is in bed with the government and MSM, and they're censoring it left and right. You remember like 6-7 months ago when a lot of these doctors came forward and they were saying, hey, I'm actually treating these patients. What they're saying is wrong. Boom, censored, shit can them. This is Orwellian. This is what we were warned about. We are in a battle of good and evil. And I'm not saying that to be cliche. I'm genuinely being serious. If you believe in God, you don't believe in God, we are in a battle of good and evil. And good is being censored. Truth, standing for truth, is being censored. You know why you censor people? Because you're afraid of the truth getting out. If it's not the truth, you have nothing to worry about. The lie will expose itself over time. So the more that they censor you, why? Are you not asking yourself that question? I've been banned on almost every platform. I had to start back over on all my social medias, left and right. I've been doing this since 2015. When I saw the political correctness coming into our country and destroying it because we pander to the single percentile of weak-minded people, it's ruined the country. Social media has created this false reality that we've all bought into. This idea of keeping up with the Joneses, you got to have the perfect butt, the perfect this, the perfect that. People that post in front of their fake Ferraris they rented to make it appear like they're fucking gurus and shit like that. In reality, they're not. They're liars. Well, if the people are doing that, what do you think the government's doing? You know, something I thought about the other day, and the jury's still out in my mind on this one. I grew up wanting to serve. I think most young men in America, they do. They want to serve their country. We're taught that it's a noble, commendable thing. And I remember my father took me to this Vietnam static display. It was out front of this grocery store called Market Basket in my hometown. And it was this green canvas tent. And under that tent, there were all these static displays of things that happened in Vietnam, from the fake M16 rifles to pictures, the punji stick pits, all these things, dog tags, the helmets, the Kevlar vests, all these things. And as a kid, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this. I'm like, ooh and ah. I was like, yes, I want that. I want to be associated with the spirit of my forefathers. And then there was this one part where it showed the protesters of Vietnam that were throwing their medals. And my father was like, those are the fucking hippies. Fuck those motherfuckers. It's like, yeah, fuck those motherfuckers. And now I fast forward to my generation. And I look and I see our elected officials sending us to war for what? For what? And I ask myself, if another war kicked off that wasn't justified, and technically the Iraq war wasn't justified, nor was it legal, but where would I stand in that? And so I look back to the protesters in Vietnam. We were clearly fighting the spread of communism, right? So we were told by the government. The creation of the FBI by J. Edgar Hoover. Politicized, weaponized, going after people like Martin Luther King Jr., painting him to be a communist, to turn more whites against blacks, to essentially discard the civil rights movement. Again, another three-letter agency weaponized by the government to prevent the spread of freedom, inequality for black people as well as other minorities. But yet we still have the FBI. So during that time frame, I asked myself, if I was a protester and the government says, you're going to go to war in this foreign country called Vietnam to prevent North Vietnam from invading South Vietnam, to prevent the spread of communism. And I would probably today say, that's not my fight. I'm not going. Fuck you. If they don't want communism, then those boys better pick up AK-47s and fight for what they want. I'm not spending my life on that. And then it starts to hit me. Were the protesters right? Were the hippies right? I have no idea. And so everything that I have been taught to think, what I thought to be truth, is actually, in fact, partially, possibly a lie. So what else was I lied to about? We have to question what the government tells us, what the history books tell us. Because what I'm seeing right now, the way America is going, we are following very closely behind how Rome fell. I used to be tolerant of people, and I still am to an extent, so please don't take me the wrong way with this. Right now in America, we have the transgender movement pushing out there. And I believe you're right to do whatever you want to do. If you want to chop your dick off and turn your Audi into an innie, do what you want. I don't care. I just don't want to pay for it. You want to reverse it, sew some boobs on you? I don't care. I just don't want to pay for it. But then I started to understand something. We have now in America embraced and praised insanity. Some strong words to say. And I still believe in your right to do whatever the hell it is you want to do. I don't have to agree with it, though. That's the freedom of choice and the freedom of speech. But I still support your right to do whatever the hell it is that you want. But how far off the realm, or how far off the road of common sense are we going to go now for the sake of inclusivity, for the sake of not making you feel bad, for the sake of sparing your feelings? And I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that even though the world and the government and social media and the MSM might tell you one thing to be factually true, the doctors, the scientists, they say this is normal, this is normal. A man can become a woman, a man can give birth to a child, a man can breastfeed. All these things that they are now espousing as truth are in fact fucking lies, and we know this. Then how can we have open dialogue with people that believe in these fallacies? Tolerance and acceptance have now turned into forced celebration. I don't have all the answers, but I will tell you this. What I see across the world, what's going on in Austria right now, another lockdown. And by the way, one of the most locked down countries and COVID's still spiking. Fauci himself coming out there saying, I don't understand why there's more hospital increases in vaccinated people. Fauci comes out and he says, if you get the vaccine, you're not a super spreader. You don't have to wear a mask. That changed. Now you got to wear 2 masks. That changed. Now you got to get a booster shot. Now you got to get 2 booster shots. Do you not see they're moving the goalpost at this point? But it's not that I don't want people not to get the vaccine. You do what you want. I mean, quite honestly, the majority of you out there, you probably do some really weird shit behind the bedroom door. So, I mean, let's be honest with this. But even still, you get where I'm going with this? They're moving the goalpost. And in my mind, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but do any of you remember, and I've talked about this on my podcast, do any of you remember what was going on in China right before COVID hit? Do you remember Hong Kong? They were on the verge of a revolution. Do y'all remember that? And then suddenly COVID hits. The revolution's gone. Economically, if Hong Kong would have came to a freaking stalemate, it'd have been bad. If you really think this is about a pandemic or a virus, you're sadly mistaken. This is about control. It felt to me like every single government out there put coal into the engine of this locomotive, this train car, and they got the wheels spinning. They got the steam going. Every single one of us was afraid when they first hit us with this propaganda bullshit. Remember the scenes of bodies dropping in the streets? All these things, I remember it. And then suddenly, the narrative starts to shift and it starts to change. The goalpost starts getting moved and people start waking up. So, you should question everything, to include authority. Every single person out there, what the government tells you to be true, question it. Question the police. Question your elected officials. Do not trust them. And to Australia, God bless you. I hope you guys and girls stay safe over there, but you got to ask yourselves, what's the line in the sand before you turn to violence? Because guess what? Violence is an answer. It is an answer. Our forefathers in America said the exact same fucking thing. They didn't want to go to war. They wanted to go negotiate with the king as much as they could. But when the king said no, they were left with no choice. I hope it doesn't come to that, but you better be considerate of that. So that's all I got. I see you're back. I don't want to run over on time, but I appreciate you having me on. I can't hear you. Might just be me. Hold on. Let me try one more time.
Gotcha. You're good. Oh, there we go. Bringing the fire, my man. Absolutely on. We're getting some great comments coming through.
All right.
And bro,
I'll bounce out on you, man. I'm sorry. I can't hear you. It's not working.
Okay. Easy done, my man. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you.